The 1970s was a period of bold colors, prominent patterns, and a free spirit that permeated every corner of the home. When technology hadn't yet dominated life, people often invited each other over to their homes to gather, enjoying warm and simple moments. The home at that time was not just a place to live, but also a place to express personality and break all norms. Let's explore the indispensable items that once appeared in every 70s home. When you stepped into a 70s home, you would easily encounter wood-paneled walls. This was perhaps the most iconic element in home decoration at that time. Dark-toned panels, often with a glossy finish, gave the entire room a cozy, real log cabin feel. Not only beautiful, but there was also a very practical reason for their popularity. They were cheap, easy to install, and significantly more durable than paint or wallpaper. You didn't have to worry about scratches or chips, and no one had to rush to repaint the house after a few years of use. Just stick them on the wall, and boom, you had an instant 70s look. Although in retrospect, they might have made the room a bit dark. At the time, they conveyed a warm, solid, and quite luxurious feel. During this period, people particularly loved bold and colorful wallpaper designs. We saw the rise of giant floral patterns, prominent geometric motifs, and bright color schemes. Some families even extended the wallpaper from the walls all the way up to the ceiling. Each room thus acquired a distinct personality, often very loud and unmistakable. Although today some patterns might seem too overwhelming, at the time they were considered truly stylish, even chic. Besides wallpaper, another very popular trend was textured walls. Instead of flat surfaces, people used embossed wallpaper, foil, or textured plaster to create walls with unique surfaces. These textures not only created visual highlights, but also provided an appealing tactile sensation, adding a layer of depth and richness to the living space. What about you? How did you decorate the walls in your home back then? When you stepped into a 70s home, you would be greeted by the feeling of sinking deep into a thick and soft shag carpet. Thanks to advancements in synthetic fiber development and manufacturing techniques, shag carpeting with long, thick fibers became easy and affordable to produce and quickly appeared throughout homes nationwide in the 60s and 70s. They were everywhere, from living rooms, bedrooms, and even bathrooms to keep bare feet warm. However, let's be honest, despite looking cozy, they were truly a nightmare to clean, especially if you had pets. Fur, crumbs, and all sorts of other things would disappear without a trace into that deep, thick pile. And do you remember, the shag rake was an indispensable tool to maintain the beauty of this type of carpet. Kids particularly loved running the rake through the carpet as if grooming a wild animal. I bet many of us took better care of that carpet than our own hair. In areas like kitchens and bathrooms, linoleum flooring was a popular choice. They often came with many bold patterns and colors inspired by geometry or nature. Linoleum was loved for its high durability and ease of cleaning, suitable for spaces that required practicality and frequent hygiene. When I think of a 70s living room, the first image that comes to mind is a fabric sofa with a crazy pattern that my grandmother used to have. It was a perfect addition to any living room, especially when placed next to wood-paneled walls and a vibrant orange shag rug. These sofas were often very large, brightly colored, and bold, frequently featuring daisy or sunflower patterns. They were upholstered in fabric, and the good news is that the fabric would last forever. But that was also the bad news. You would have mixed feelings about this eclectic sofa. Because sofas were often purchased on installment plans, families typically had only one and expected it to last. Beneath the prominent patterned cushions, the frame was usually made of sturdy dark wood, creating a unique combination of durability and free-spirited aesthetics. What would the 70s be without these iconic beanbag chairs? This shapeless, comfortable bag had been in every home from 1968 onwards. Beanbag chairs were loved because they were very affordable, a huge plus for 1970s households. Secondly, they were extremely comfortable. Families could spend hours relaxing on them without feeling the need to move anywhere else. And last but not least, they were stylish and easily movable. These fun, flexible chairs could go anywhere at any time. However, one downside was that they could cause a mess when torn. You couldn't have a beanbag chair and a sofa without an ottoman. Most 70s living rooms had at least one round ottoman, and you often found them placed right in front of any seating. They were typically small seats or ottomans, round or slightly angular, used versatilely as coffee tables, extra stools, or footrests for sofas or armchairs. These ottomans were often designed with thick cushions, upholstered in colorful fabric or leather. Small children were also often found sitting right on these ottomans. They allowed you to relax and put your feet up on one of these square, practical beauties, becoming an indispensable part of a comfortable, inviting living space. If you ever had the chance to sit on plastic-covered furniture, you'd surely remember that squeaky, sticky sound every time you sat down, as if the chair was protesting your presence. And if you were a bit sweaty, your skin would stick to the plastic like glue. They were hot in the summer, cold in the winter, and seemed always uncomfortable. Yet, for many families, these clear covers were a way to protect good, expensive furniture. It was a battle between practicality and comfort, and in most cases, practicality often won. Sometimes, you weren't even allowed to sit on them. Modular furniture consisted of furniture pieces designed as separate modules that could be disassembled and reassembled in various ways. These flexible pieces allowed you to arrange them to create an ideal group conversation space. What's special is that depending on how you arranged these pieces, you could create a great setting for a group conversation. Even if you wanted to keep someone out of the conversation, like a daughter and her doll, for instance, that was entirely possible. For the super liberal, there was even a modular furniture brand called Playpen, a bold expression of style and freedom. In an era where hosting visiting relatives was a given, and these relatives strangely never thought of paying for their own hotel rooms, sofa sleepers became a perfect piece of furniture. Serving as an armchair by day and a guest bed by night, this piece of furniture saved countless awkward situations for families. Anyone who visited relatives in the 1960s or 1970s likely slept on one of these beds at least once. In the 70s, the TV was not just a screen, it was a real piece of furniture. These large TV consoles were often encased in wood, with sliding doors and elaborate decorative trim. They naturally occupied the center of the living room as a proud focal point. Every evening, the whole family would gather together to watch TV shows, and no remote control meant kids were the remote, always having to get up to change channels. It was a familiar nightly ritual. In the early 70s, a decent 21-inch color TV console cost about $500, equivalent to $3,500 today. The TV's wooden casing was often chosen to match other furniture in the room, and the top of the TV was often used to display family photos or small decorative items. When the screen finally broke, we didn't throw it out. No, we just placed the new TV right on top of it. Suddenly, your old console became the world's heaviest TV stand. It sounds a bit ridiculous, but that's how most of us did things back then. Certainly, lava lamps reached their peak coolness in the 70s, but honestly, many of us still have one stored somewhere. There was something strangely mesmerizing about watching those liquid blobs slowly float and stretch inside the glowing tube. It wasn't just a light source, but also a decorative item and a symbol of groovy. The gentle, constantly changing dance of the wax created a calming, relaxing atmosphere in any room. Interestingly, the concept of the lava lamp was developed in 1963. While it may no longer be the centerpiece it once was, it still exists, a small, groovy, magical piece that never truly left us. Macrame was everywhere in the 70s. Almost anyone I knew, including myself, had some knotted creation hanging on the wall or used to hold plants. It gave the home a handmade, close-to-nature feel that was very trendy at the time. And let's not forget the most iconic macrame design of all, the owl shape. With its big eyes, knotted texture forming feathers, and sometimes small wooden beads for the beak, you couldn't walk into a living room or hallway without a macrame owl staring at you. This craft item carried a simple, skillful, and charming beauty, perfectly suited to the spirit of the era. Granny square crocheted blankets seemed to be in every household in the 70s. They were often draped over the back of chairs or sofas. Although sometimes a bit itchy, these blankets were great for draping over shoulders or laps when it got chilly. They were often made from coarse yarn and featured the characteristic colors and patterns of that period. These blankets were not just items for warmth, but also symbols of coziness and family affection in every home. Bead curtains were everywhere in the 70s, often hung in doorways between rooms, swaying gently with every step. They brought a unique bohemian style, creating a sense of space separation without fully closing them off. Bead curtains could be made from various materials such as wood, plastic, or even bamboo, and they made a characteristic clack-clack sound every time someone passed through. If you had a cat, good luck. Our cat just stared at the bead curtain as if it were a puzzle. It took them a long time to understand they could push through. For kids, every time they passed through a bead curtain, it felt like stepping through a small gateway, a fun transition into any space on the other side. Another unique wall decoration in 70s homes was the multi-gauge weather station. Often, this item had 3 dials displaying temperature, humidity, and atmospheric pressure. Although the gauges seemed to work, in reality, they had almost no purpose other than decoration. The fancy versions of this device were made of real wood, while many others, like the one in my house, were just made of wood veneer. They were a testament to the trend of combining utility, even if not truly useful, with aesthetics in home decoration at the time. In the 70s, with the increasing popularity of television, TV trays became an indispensable item in many families. These trays allowed people to comfortably eat right in the living room while enjoying their favorite shows. They were often foldable, convenient for storage when not in use. Pottery was also an essential item in 70s home decor, fitting perfectly with the earthy and natural theme. They included various types of ceramic lamps, vases, and many other decorative items, bringing a rustic, handmade, and warm feel to the living space. Fringe details appeared extensively in home decor at the time, from curtains, lampshades, to doorways. Fringe added a touch of romantic, free-spirited, and bohemian charm, contributing to the distinctive style of the 70s. Do you remember those battery-powered wall clocks that came with matching candle sconces? My family had such a set in our house for a long time when I was little. When this set was finally taken down after many years of use, I remember that the 2 dark blue candles were thrown into the trash, never having been lit. It seems we were so accustomed to treating these candles as purely decorative items that no one thought of keeping them to use as actual candles. The explosion of DIY projects and handicrafts in the 1970s led to many homemade art pieces appearing on home walls. String art is a prime example, fitting perfectly with this trend. This art form uses colored threads or metal wires wrapped in patterns around nails hammered into a wooden base. Popular motifs included birds, boats, or geometric designs. It was a fun craft to make yourself, and when finished, you could hang it right on the wall. Teenagers' bedrooms in the 1970s were decorated with a new art form, Blacklight posters. These posters often featured colorful images of rock and roll bands, famous musicians, or any other psychedelic scene. Blacklight posters were relatively cheap and could be bought at many stores, but the best place to see them glow under UV light was in the poster section of the back aisle of Spencer's Gifts. Another poster that appeared on the walls of millions of homes in the 1970s was the famous photo of Farah Fawcett in her red one-piece swimsuit. Farah, in her swimsuit, became one of the most iconic images of the decade and a symbol of 70s pop culture. This poster was purchased by millions of fans and appeared not only in teen boys' bedrooms, but also on the walls of dads' home offices. At least, that's what happened in my house. Do you remember any other decorative items that once appeared in your home that I haven't mentioned? Please share your stories in the comments below. The sunken living room, also known as a conversation pit, was the ultimate symbol of modernity at the time. It gave the feeling as if you were stepping down into a VIP lounge right in your own home. These conversation pits were not just the simple sunken living rooms that many houses had in the 80s and 90s. They were deeper areas with multiple steps leading down, fully integrated into the room's design. Comfortable seating was arranged along the perimeter of the pit, and lighting along the edges created a separate space, ideal for gatherings and conversations. The center of the pit often featured a low table or a fireplace, adding to the cozy atmosphere. While certainly creative and unique, these conversation pits could also be dangerous for small children or the elderly. They were essentially a large hole in the floor without railings. Looking back, it was a bold choice and something we still remember. Fireplaces were an essential item in many 70s homes. They were often built from rough stone or pebbles, occupying an entire wall, providing a hunting lodge or log cabin style. These fireplaces not only provided warmth, but also served as a strong architectural accent, creating a solid and close-to-nature feel. Exposed brick was also a popular trend in 70s interior design. It could appear around the fireplace area or on an entire wall, providing a rustic, raw, renovated warehouse feel. Sometimes, these brick walls were also combined with angled ceilings, creating a unique and impressive space. If you were looking for a piece of furniture that epitomized 70s cool, these pod, egg, or globe chairs would definitely be on the list. These were unique chairs with a rounded design, mimicking an egg or sphere that enveloped the sitter, creating a private and nurturing eggshell feel. They were extremely cozy and often came with strange fiber optic lamps, creating a relaxing, unique space for the rec room. Wicker furniture also had its moment to shine in the 70s. These airy, woven wicker chairs and love seats were everywhere, from sunrooms to patios and even living rooms. Visually, they were a sharp contrast to heavy upholstered items, providing a light, airy feel. Although honestly, they weren't the most comfortable pieces for long sitting. You almost always needed a cushion. But if a piece started to unravel, good luck fixing it. With all the plants, macrame, and earthy tones of the era, wicker furniture perfectly fit the overall vibe. Interestingly, today, these items are quite sought after in the second-hand market, sometimes commanding very high prices. Chrome was not only a popular material on cars, but also widely used in 70s home interiors. You would see it on kitchen chair legs, coffee tables, appliances, and lighting fixtures. This shiny material provided a modern industrial look and was often used to create a contrasting accent with natural materials like wood and wicker. In the 70s, organs also became a thing in households. I remember there was a Lowry organ store in my local mall, and there was always a guy in a suit playing, drawing passers-by into the store. I'm not sure if organs were bought as a more compact alternative to pianos, but I can see their appeal. Look how cool it was with all those glowing switches. They were not just musical instruments, but also a symbol of entertainment and lifestyle in many families. Mushrooms were everywhere in the 70s, not just in recipes, but also in home decor. You would see them on everything from kitchen canisters and wall art to salt and pepper shakers and dish towels. There was something quirky and lovable about those smiling cartoon mushrooms with their big caps. They gave the kitchen a warm, natural, almost fairy tale look. It was a direct reflection of the era's fascination with nature and organic, earthy aesthetics. It's funny how popular they were for a while. It seemed everyone had at least one mushroom-themed item in their kitchen. 70s Pyrex dishes were not just ordinary cooking utensils. They were also part of kitchen decor. They came in many colorful and vibrant patterns to display, completely different from today's plain and transparent dishes. Fun patterns like floral or geometric motifs turned these Pyrex dishes into a colorful accent in every kitchen, reflecting the unique style of that decade. Giant globe-shaped glass pendant lights over dining tables were a very popular decorative item in the 70s, especially those in bright orange. These globe lights were often made from blown or molded glass with smooth surfaces or sometimes frosted or cracked effects, creating a modern yet unique beauty. The glass material allowed light to diffuse softly, creating a cozy and inviting atmosphere for the dining table and living room. Vinyl tablecloths were a must-have item in 70s kitchens. They were made from vinyl PVC, characterized by high durability, good elasticity, and excellent waterproofing. The smooth, non-absorbent, and very effective stain-resistant surface of vinyl made the tablecloth easy to wipe clean with a damp cloth or mild detergents without damage. This was the perfect solution for easy cleanup and protecting wood tables from spills and stains during daily life. In 70s kitchens, you would easily find large coffee makers capable of brewing a full pot. The Mr. Coffee brand was one of the most popular types, allowing families to enjoy hot coffee conveniently and quickly. Waterbeds were a craze in the 70s, considered the ultimate symbol of cool and comfort. This special type of bed had a sleeping surface made of water contained within a sealed bag or bladder, providing a soft and very supportive feel to the body when lying down. They certainly felt great until you woke up in a cold, wet puddle and realized the mattress had leaked. Honestly, that's when you hoped you wet the bed, because that would be a much better explanation. In multi-story homes, floating stairs were a unique and impressive architectural feature. These steps seemed to hover in space without obvious supports, creating a modern, ethereal, and artistic look. They were not just walkways, but also part of the overall design, contributing to the home's elegance and sophistication. Interestingly, colonial-style furniture made a comeback in the 70s. This might have been partly due to the bicentennial, which led people to seek out traditional and historical values. Colonial furniture often had classic, sturdy designs, providing a polite and durable feel to the living space. In the trend of wicker furniture, the Peacock Chair stood out as an icon. With its high backrest fanning out like a peacock's tail, this chair was not just a piece of furniture, but also a work of art, bringing an exotic and a touch of wild beauty to any room. It was often made of wicker or rattan, fitting the natural and handcrafted trend of the decade. When you think of a 70s wall phone, the first one that probably comes to mind is the one in the kitchen. It was firmly attached to the wall and famous for having the longest coiled cord in the house. You would stretch that cord around corners, through doorways, doing everything to get a little distance and keep siblings or curious parents from eavesdropping on your calls. Of course, all that pulling and stretching always ended with someone yelling, "Don't stretch that cord anymore." And by the end of the week, that cord would be a tangled mess that somehow still worked, containing more drama than the actual conversation. Phones back then were heavy, durable, and primarily used for talking. Rotary phones were still very common, although push-button phones had been around since 1963. Home stereos were a popular item in 70s living rooms. They were often housed in a long, low wooden cabinet resembling a piece of furniture. Inside the cabinet was a turntable, a stereo receiver, and an 8-track player, along with storage space for records and tapes. 2 large speakers were often integrated on either side of the cabinet or placed on the floor, usually covered with fake wood grain. Although this system was very large, the controls were quite simple, just a radio tuning knob, and possibly bass and treble knobs, and only one volume for both speakers. This was the main family entertainment center before the explosion of personal electronic devices. 8-track tapes were a popular music format both at home and in cars in the 70s. They were easy to store, but had a notable drawback. Songs could be cut off mid-track when changing tracks. Although not long-lasting, 8-track tapes played an important role in bringing music into every corner of daily life. Alarm clocks in the 70s began to appear with a more luxurious design, with flipping numbers, creating a characteristic ticking sound. They often had faux wood casing or were decorated with bright colors typical of the 70s. They were not just items for waking up, but also a small part reflecting the style of the era. Unlike modern appliances that are mostly white, black, or stainless steel, kitchen appliances in the 70s often came in different colors like yellow or green. These bold colors gave kitchens a unique and distinctive look. However, this trend was phased out in the 80s, and now avocado-green refrigerators or stoves are just a memory. To preserve memorable moments from vacations, 70s families often used Super 8 or slide films. Afterwards, these films or slides would be shown to family and neighbors, turning the evening into a cozy and fun commemorative show. This was a popular form of entertainment and memory preservation before digital camcorders. Vinyl records peaked in the 70s with the release of many concept albums. Album cover design was considered a lost art, and now we are seeing signs that vinyl records are making a comeback. The initial crackle of a vinyl record is an unmistakable sound, taking anyone from that era back to their memories. Do you still keep any items from the 70s? Or is there anything you wish could be revived in your current space? Tell me in the comments. If this video brought back memories for you, don't hesitate to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel so you can join us on more trips down memory lane. Thank you for watching, and see you in upcoming journeys of discovery.